Welcome back to another gobsmacking episode of Talking Lamar. Today, I'm talking high school clubs and hazing. Let's get to it.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Sorry, I forgot what I was talking about.
What are you talking about?
I am talking to you.
That's just what I was talking about.
It's Talking Lamar.
When I was in high school, there were two clubs. One was the Interact Club, which was sponsored by the Rotary Club, and the other was the Key Club, which is sponsored by the Kiwanis Club. Now, both are community service clubs. But this being high school, and high school being all about status and who's who, the clubs were about which one asked you to join. Now, I know that all of my stories make me appear to be a bona fide, barefoot, hay straw in my mouth, feeding the cows redneck, and that is not far from the truth. But in my high school world, I would be considered preppy. Need I remind you that in elementary school, I sported flare pants and a Nehru jacket. And in high school, I wore bell-bottom jeans with 18-inch bells, and I had 4-inch stack heels, also owned a pair of penny loafers. I was the kid that sat in the living room watching TV with a comb and a brush and water, combing my hair in various hairstyles. I was not, as it might appear, a teenage Junior Samples BR 549. But now, when I got home, the cows had to be fed and chased and put up when they got out of the fence. I had to pull weeds out of the garden, cut the okra, getting all itchy, shell peas and snap beans. But that was home life. I grew up in a single wide till the third grade. I was in the trailer, but the trailer was not necessarily in me. At school, I floated through all the different groups. I had friends in the band group. I had friends in the athletes, the true 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-year rednecks, and the geeks. So when it come down to clubs, I have to say the Key Club was the coolest club. Interact was okay, but it wasn't the Key Club. And I wanted the Key Club. So when the invitations went out, I got one from Interact, which was nice, but it wasn't the Key Club. So I gave it a few days, and finally it came, the Key Club invite. Now, with every silver lining, there's always a cloud. And in this instant, it was the hazing. Hazing. It's so unfair, especially in high school. The normal everyday hazing was not a big deal. I mean, you'd have to come to school with your pants on backwards, and maybe you might have to wear a lipstick and eyeshadow one day to school. You had to do what the current members wanted you to do for them. You had to wash their car, or they would make you go up to girls and say really stupid, embarrassing stuff. All of that stuff was not a real problem. The scary part was initiation night. That was when they took us to the lake in the dark, in the wintertime. They made us strip down to our underwear and get stuff poured all over us like motor oil, chocolate syrup. Then they dusted us with flour. They put Vaseline in our hair, and they put stuff in with the Vaseline. But it was still not all that bad, even though we would have to run into the freezing lake to try to wash this stuff off. The bad part was what they made us eat. And it was legendary.
Oh.
And it was scary. All the members of the club had been mixing stuff up in jars for a couple of weeks. Stuff like dog food, rotten eggs, cooking oil, food scraps left over from their table. And probably things I can't even imagine or want to. And then these jars have been sitting out for over a week in the sun. And what we had to do, we had to sit on our knees with our hands behind our back, hold our head back, and open our mouths wide. And at that point, each member walked by and poured some of the contents of their jars in our mouths. We could not spit it out. We could throw up. That was okay because you really couldn't stop that. But it had to go in and it had to go down because you had to swallow it. Now, trust me, the throwing up was natural. It came real easy. Throwing up was not a problem. And trust me, I'm one of those people that hates to throw up. I spend my whole life trying to avoid throwing up. But the smell of the stuff was the worst. Honestly, I believe before you could actually taste it, you were throwing up. Now, I'm sure this only lasted a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Because, I mean, you probably threw up at least a dozen times. I mean, it was exhausting. It was horrible. And after all that was over with, when then we would run into the lake and we did what we could to wash it off. But you've got all this stuff and the Vaseline and oil and you got all this stuff, and the water is freezing cold, so it's not really washing off, But then after we came back out, then we were all sworn in, and then they offered us a beer, and I'm like, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm really good. I'm freezing to death. I'm still a mess. And, there was no use trying to put your clothes back on because that's just wasn't going to work. And so we had been told to bring multiple towels with us, which was very good advice. I put towels on the seat of my car, and I wrapped myself in a towel around my waist and then one over my shoulders. And I got in the car and I turned the heat wide open because I was free. I was jerking, freezing to death, just shivering. And I drove home. When I got home, my mama would not let me in the house until I used multiple more towels that she brought me to wipe myself enough that I could walk through the house to the bathroom without leaving a mess. And when I got through, she put my underwear in the trash and took the trash to the burn barrel. And there was no point in trying to wash anything.
I was cannot believe this.
Oh yeah,
this is Key Club.
Yeah, this is the kind. I mean, this is the kind of stuff. Oh my gosh. And I was in the shower until the hot water was gone and the well, even with the cold water, the well run dry because we're not on city water. We had a well. And if you washed it, if you run it enough, you could run the well dry. And I still wasn't completely clean. So mama made me sleep on an old sheet on top of my bed, no pillows because it would ruin the pillowcases. So when I got up the next day, I showered again and I finally got, decent. I got cleaned up and, now I'm in the Key Club and I'm thinking to myself, well, a year from now, I get to haze the new guys. So the next year rolls around and I helped pick the new members and saw the hazing started. And I participated in this stuff like the backward pants and, them wearing makeup and stuff like that. But when it came to initiation night, I just couldn't do it. I could not mix up a bunch of stuff for them to eat because number one, I hated it when it happened to me. And I think what happens on this hazing thing is, you spent this whole year waiting to do to somebody else what got done to you, but I didn't like it. And so I couldn't see myself doing that to somebody else. And I didn't want to go through the making of it. And it was a waste of time because it's just disgusting. And I don't like practical jokes. I don't like scaring people. I don't like pranks. It's just not my thing.
How were you going to get out of this though?
Well, it was no big deal. I mean, it was, listen, they didn't care whether I did it or not. The rest of the members they're all excited about it. I'm just not excited about it. So what I did is I found out about some sort of pill that you could take. And the next day it would make your pee turn into different colors. So I talked to the pharmacist at my mama's drugstore and I asked him about it. He immediately knew what I was talking about. And he assured me that it was a treatment for urinary problems. Couldn't hurt anything. I mean, it wouldn't be a problem. He said, but it'll make their urine turn blue-green. So I got some, and after all the swallowing and throwing up and all that was over with, and they got out of the lake, I said, hey, guys, here. I got this. I said, it'll help you settle your stomach. It'll keep you from being sick, and it'll stop you from throwing up. And so I give them the pills, and it didn't work on everybody for whatever reason, but it worked on about half of them. Now, I don't know if some of them, they didn't want to say anything to their parents, or, they didn't say anything. But then there was a few of them that were like calling their mama to come looking at the toilet, and they got took to the hospital, and they got, it was okay. They got treated or whatever. And so that was my contribution to the whole hazing thing. Because listen, given the choice between clever or gross, I'll take clever every time. I'm just not a big fan of that whole hazing thing. It just, I don't know.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
You know what? You're the kind of person who, when confronted with evil, doesn't just follow orders. You showed that. You showed your character. Don't you think, Max, in that moment? Because some people will go along with the crowd, and the crowd is doing something terrible, and that's their cover. That's their excuse, their story. And then there are people who go, yeah, you know what? Not for me. And so you showed, if your mama had known the truth about why you smelled so bad, she'd have been proud of you, I think.
Oh God. I had warned her. She knew what I was doing. And I said, when I get home, I don't know what I'm going to look like. She thought she was prepared for it. But when I got out of the car in my underwear, wrapped in towels, she's like, oh my God.
Wow.
When I went to the high school seminary school, when I was a freshman, they did hazing. And of course, I'm not getting into a club or anything else. I'm just trying to go to a school because I'm interested in becoming a Roman Catholic priest. And they did it to us. And the people running the school knew they did to it. But you should never trust the judgment of adolescent boys, even if they are at a seminary school, because they put permanent marker like on our faces. So they did stuff like clowns and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And that stuff took days to come off. I mean,
oh yeah, you can't just wash it off.
Days to come off.
Yes. Yeah. See, that's the thing about, they don't have supervision. Like the Kiwanis Club, they would come and, and get us set up and speak to us about, and then we would do, community service events and stuff like that. But there was no adult at this place. No adult. There was no adult. There's, and it's the same thing. Listen, when Alex went to college, her first year, she had a good friend of hers. It's a guy. He was they were friends, and he was getting into this one of the Greek clubs, and I mean, they took them out 15 miles with no phone, or didn't think they had a phone. This guy managed to keep a phone in his pocket, but they took him out like 15 miles and dumped him off in a field, and then drove back and went to bed. And they had to get back 15 miles with no, so he had his phone and he called Alex. And so the next day, Alex is telling us that at 3:00 in the morning, she's out by herself in her car trying to find this guy and some of his friends to bring them back. And I'm like, hold up. I said, I appreciate you trying to help somebody, but you don't need to be out at 3:00 in the morning. I mean, and college hazing, well, you've seen the news over the years. College hazing got out of hand. It gets out of control. And so, but yeah, that just wasn't my deal. That wasn't my deal. But it was fun knowing that somebody was peeing blue and green. That was all right. I was good with that.
I have gone my whole life thinking that like the Key Club and the Civitans and DECA were all these like entrepreneurial future business majors. And here it turns out you're puking in your underpants into a lake late at night in the woods. That's just not. That is not what I thought that was.
And see, the thing about it is, it's not like the people that's in the Kiwanis Club. I mean, this Kiwanis Club has been around forever, and they're a great club, and they do so much stuff in the community. They're awesome. They really are. But all of these guys that's in the club, they went through high school. They were in the Key Club. before they became businessmen and got into the Kiwanis Club. So they have an idea of what's going on. And nobody got hurt or anything. But God, there's a lot of stuff we swallowed. Thank goodness we threw it all up. Because
do not trust the judgment of adolescent boys.
Listen. A couple of years before I joined, it was legendary that one guy, his dad owned a chicken farm. And when you get the chickens and stuff, or the eggs, you get the eggs. Sometimes you'll have a duty in the egg, like a formed chicken. And he saved those, and so each kid, as he came by, he would crack an egg, and it would drop a chicken half embryo grown into his mouth. That was legendary. That was legendary.
I'm gonna die.
Is there something wrong with me that the idea of the hazing and all that is just like, really?
Oh no, I hated every second of it. But when you're in the Key Club, you're the man. I'm sorry, you're the man on campus. Yeah, that was the deal.
Listen,
it was the deal.
When you're in the seminary high school, when you leave to go to the regular Catholic high school, you are the subject of ridicule. You had so much hazing just from that process.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was tough. It was tough, but it was good. It was, in fact, when I wrecked my car on one of the episodes, we were headed to the Key Club convention. I can't imagine how much fun that would have been had I not turned the car over and busted my head and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my word!
Yeah, we was headed to the Key Club convention. Oh yeah. We were headed that way.
You know what? That was y'all putting lampshades on your head and doing like the bunny hop like in a Fred Flintstone cartoon. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was the deal. So let's keep it in mind. I'm not the redneck that I appear to be. This is going to wrap up. This is wrapping up the high school life for this young Renaissance redneck, and I want to thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to listen. We've had fun. I hope you did. And if so, don't keep it to yourself. Tell somebody you know to check out the Talking Lamar podcast. They may be eternally grateful. You'll never know. And you'll also never know till you try out Sheri's True Weird podcast. You will love it, and you'll learn some stuff.
It's true.
There's more to come.
True weird stuff. Just
what did I say?
You just said the
okay.
All
right.
I just want to make sure that people know what the official name is, so they do a search and they'll find True Weird
Stuff podcast. Yes. Now there's more to come, so don't stop now, because I hate a quitter. Join us for the next episode of Talking Lamar. We would love to hear what you think. You can email or go on the Bob and Sheri website or the app and look down at the bottom and click on the microphone and start talking. You can also call 844-52-SHERI and leave a message. Until then,